What is happening, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel and another video in this series on this project T5. So, last couple of episodes have been mechanical work and things like that. I did have to split that episode into two because with the drive shaft and everything, it was starting to get a bit too long. I like to try and keep them as close to 20 odd minutes as I can. Thank you all so much for commenting and emailing and messaging and everything about what fixes could be for the problems we had with this. Genuinely sat there and spent about 4.5 hours replying to comments, messages and emails. But thank you all so much. Something that was suggested quite a lot was the vanes in the turbo, so I've got some oven cleaners to give that a go. The head gasket could have been causing boost issues as well, so that was also mentioned, but I'll lead on to why I don't think that it is what it is in a bit. And MAF sensor was the other port of call that people said it could be. There were a few other suggestions as well, but I think they were the key ones. So first thing I did, really, when I'd read all them and sorted my head out again, unplugged the MAF sensor, got in the van and gave it a drive. Boost problem fixed. Boost problem wasn't there anymore. It did what it should have done. There was a nice progressive boost, and then yeah, at 2000 it went a bit further, but there was a nice progressive boost as you initially pulled off. So new MAF sensor there, fingers crossed that fixes that issue. I have also had a friend over and we've done a sniff test on cooling system. So you get the vehicle up to temperature and you have I suppose a vial, if you like, of a chemical. It's got a little ball on top. You squeeze it and it sucks the exhaust gases, if or what gases are coming out of that, into it. And it should, if there's exhaust gases in there, it'll react with the chemical inside the vial and tell you if it's gone or if there's exhaust gases there. Well, there wasn't. It came back as though it said there was no exhaust gases in there. So I'm not 100% totally ruling out the head gasket isn't gone, but touch wood, it's looking hopefully like it isn't the head gasket, which would be a dream. So what I'm going to try now, that I think it is, I think there's a blockage in the cooling system, is what I think it is. So when we did the sniff test, half of the cooling system, when the van was to temperature, was sort of from the header tank down was warm, and then the other half of the cooling system was cold. The warm side as well, the pipes were rock hard. So I think there's a blockage somewhere, which means when the water's expanding, or when the water's creating steam and it's expanding and the space is getting smaller, it's putting too much pressure on their pipes and it can't get into the rest of the system. Because the heater matrix in the van as well, when you turn the van off, there's a bubbling through the matrix. So I think there's a blockage. So next step of what I'm going to do is we're going to do change the thermostat, change the Cambelt and the water pump. While that's all off, I'm going to push it outside and I'm going to flush the cooling system. So take a couple of choice hoses off, hose pipe in and let it run through to try and clear if there's any crap in there or whatever. And then we'll see if that's all right. Now, yesterday, I had to nip out and pick some bits up from Transport HQ. It's not far at all. So I unplugged the MAF sensor and, well, I didn't actually. I chucked the new MAF sensor in, but for the next bit of the video, we'll pretend I've not done that. Put the new MAF sensor in so that we don't have a boost issue. Filled the water up, started it up, get it at the temperature, took the cap off here, which you shouldn't really do on a pressurised system because it could scald you and burn you, but because of the nature of the cap that this is, you can do it, undo it a little bit, release a bit of pressure. I don't advise doing it, but it worked. The level then was dropped and it came up to where it needed to be. Put the cap back on, put a bottle of water in the door, jumped in the van and drove over to HQ. Got to HQ and the water hadn't moved at all whatsoever. Did what I needed to do at HQ, got the bits, drove back, pulled it back in here, bonnet up, and again, the water hadn't moved. It did nothing. Now, when I was driving along, did what it should have done. Needle went up, sat at 90 degrees, all nice, all good. And then, I can't remember how far into the journey it was, the needle dropped to about 70 degrees for a couple of seconds, a few seconds, and then it just crept back up to 90 degrees. So I'm wondering whether the blockage has slightly cleared itself. because of, if it dropped to 70, it means that the coolant had gone round, it had mixed with cold water, the temperature had dropped, and then it crept back up as the engine was warming it all back up. So hopefully we might be able to solve it with flushing it out, a new water pump and a new thermostat. But anyway, enough of me waffling on. First things first, let's show you how to change the MAF sensor. So then, here we go. MAF sensor is here. Mass airflow sensor. So, to change this out, you've got to take this off, which these clips have got this piece here and this piece here. If you put a screwdriver in, lightly, this piece sort of pushes, if you can see in there, there's a pin in there that it pushes out the way of. Anyway, you'll get the hang of it. They're a bit of a pain. Push that and remove that. You want some proper pliers for these clips, but water pump pliers do the job. Like that, that's that out of the way. Pull that pipe off, out of the way, and then on here you've got, so I've undone this clip, which keep things away because they're springy boys and hurt quite a lot. You've got a Phillips screw here, and you've got a Phillips screw down here as well. Now they are quite big and are quite rusty and worn, so unless you've got a massive Phillips head screwdriver, flat blade will do the job. So in here we will two screws, we'll pull the other one out here and throw that out there. And we've got a nice box here with a nice shiny new one in. We'll open up. Look at this nice packaging. It's as if it's never been opened. Whip these end covers off, and there is a new one. Now you notice on there there's an arrow. Well, obviously it can only go one way because it's got a flange on it. But yeah, there's a rubber in here that you have to keep an eye on and make sure that, this is it, that rubber in there. See that, just there. There's a rubber, so you've got to make sure that's in there. There is a little bit of lube on it that I put on it just to help that one go back in. We'll just, that one pushes in there, easy as that. Two screws, back in. That one, and that one. Screw them back up. That one are in, that's that. Push this back on, like so. Grab your pliers, which you've got to open up mega far to get onto this. Open up, which put your tongue out as well, because that does help. Squeeze that together. Right, as much as you can to get it over the lip. And there. They go into that little groove. And you know it's in the right place. Release pressure. That's in. That's on. Plug in. Done. And that right there is a MAF sensor in 15. Done. All sorted. MAF sensor on, in, plugged in. Should solve the problem. Well, it does solve the problem because I've already driven with it, but it should solve your problem potentially if you've got boost issue. Now that was about, I want to say 50 odd quid brand new, so not the end of the world. Much better than having to buy a new turbo. We'll now move on to doing the Cambelt. So I've got to take out what I've just put in to get access to it. So we'll jack the van up, get it on axle stands, go and find myself a bit of wood to support the engine. We'll get all the ancillaries out of the way, the airbox and everything out there that we need to, and then we'll move on to showing you how I'm going to change the Cambelt. There you go, lift it off, out of the way. Take this off again. So for the airbox, there's one 10mm bolt down there, which will undo. So taking this breather hose off here as well. Down here there's another clip which goes into the turbo, which I've taken off. We'll pull that, get another pipe out of the way. Then I think the next thing I'll move is I'm going to move this tank here out of the way as well. back in. So on the airbox, there's another hose down here that you've got to remember to remove. Twist it and pull it. It goes over this little lip. Twist it and pull it off. That comes off. And then you've got to try and disconnect this sort of cold air duct into the airbox, and the airbox will come out. To give us a bit of better access, we'll remove all this hose here, which goes down to the turbo. So we'll undo the clip there, and the clip that goes into the intercooler there. So you just lift that up, and it should come back out. And there's one bolt there. Another pipe out. So airbox is out, and look at all this much room we've got for activities. So we'll take this cover off now. There's one little clip there, and there's one on that side, and this lifts up and off to expose the cam belt. That's just made life a bit easier. What we're going to do now is get the van jacked up, and we're going to take tension off of the alternator belt and take that belt off, and I think then we'll have a bit more of an idea of what we've got to do next and what's got to be taken off. The engine mount's obviously got to be taken off, but yeah, let's get it jacked up and then we'll move on and look at the next bit. So releasing the tension on the auxiliary belt, you've got, this is the tensioner for that here. You get a 16mm spanner, push down on it, that takes the tension off and you'll be able to take the belt off. So I'm going to need 2 hands to do that, so back in a sec. So on this I've just written back and engine, so that's to the back of the vehicle. That points to the engine just so that it's going to go back on the right way. It isn't that bad, so it's going back on, because I didn't buy one. So then guys, next thing that needs to come off is going to be this engine mount. So what I'm going to do is get a block of wood and the jack and pop that underneath to support the engine. So that's got tension now on holding supporting the engine, so I'll go and get some sockets. We'll whip this part of this off and then we'll get this part off and we can get the rest of the cover off. So on here you've got 16mm for these 3, and then this one is 18mm. Now, I'm not struggling, so let's call in the big guns. So they're undone. I've stuffed a bit of tissue in the end of the turbo hose as well, just so we don't get any crap in there. They're all out of there, so we can put that to one side. Now, next bit we've got to get this piece off as well, so that's the bolt down there. Yeah, probably going to be accessed from the bottom, and these 2 here, so let's try and crack these off here first, which 16 again. That one's off there. That one looks like it's got 10mm on the end holding the bracket. So I've just whipped the wheel and the arch liner off. So up there, you see here, we've got this bolt here with a bigger one behind it. This is holding the clamp on for this power steering hose. And then the bolt behind it holds it onto the block. So take this front one off and then take the bigger bolt off, and hopefully that mount comes off. Right, now looking in here, you've got, that's the one I've just undone. You've got this one to take out and this one to take out, and then this is loose, so it'll come out. So 2 hands again, I'll whip that out. Right, that bracket's out, and we've got now to take this bottom pulley off, which is by those spline bolts. So I'll go and get a bit and we will get this pulley off. Right, that's the bolts done. So you've got 4 of these M10 multi-spline bolts that are in here, which hold basically this pulley onto the bottom cam crank pulley. Which, if I wiggle this off and it comes off like that, that reveals the cam belt crank pulley. So what I'm going to do now is undo all these 10mm bolts, take all these covers off, and that should then expose the whole cam belt to us. But as ever, having the camera in here and doing it is quite difficult, so see you in a minute. So there's a bolt for this cover, there's a bolt behind here, so this is the tensioner for the alternator belt. So there's a 13mm bolt there, one at the bottom. I'm gonna have to take this off. Right, so down here we've got the crank pulley set at TDC, timed up properly with all the marks, and we've got the lock in place on the bottom pulley, and the same up here on the cam pulley. We've got that locked in, and that pin is home into a hole in the block, so everything's in the correct place. I've just gone to slacken off this tensioner, and as you can see here, this bit, I put the Allen key in, started turning it, and this part has just shattered off. There you go, so I've undone that, and then we can get some mole grips on it and that. There we go, slackened off, just what we wanted to do. Timing belt, there's the tensioner. So then, cam belt's off, tensioner's off, and idler pulley's off. Everything's locked in with the pin and down there. Water pump I'm just about to take off next. Old bits are down here, so there's the old tensioner, there's the old pulley. Water pump's obviously coming out in a minute, and here's all the new bits. So plastic impeller on there, new one with a pin in already, so we pull that out and it'll tension it. New idler there with no play, and two new nuts. Now this has got a tiny amount of play. This feels alright, but again we're off, so we might as well swap it all over. Old belt doesn't look too bad, a little frayed on the edges, but doesn't look overly bad, I don't think. But yeah, nice shiny new one, can only be better. So now what I'm going to do is try and whip this water pump out. Now I've not dropped the coolant, so there will be some coolant fallout, so I'll put a bucket underneath. So yeah, I'll just shut the camera on and we'll just make a start really. So they look like you've got 10mm bolt there, 10mm bolt down here somewhere, there, somewhere. And I think there's one there as well. That should, oh no, beg your pardon, three, one there, and one there. And that should then just come out. There's a rubber O-ring that seals it to the block. I'll just crack these off and take it out. So there's that one out anyway. We'll clean the block up and we'll just chuck the new one in. Bolts down there, out of the way. Just clean this face up a bit, make sure it's nice and flat, there's no debris on it or anything. So the new seal do what it's supposed to do. Right, there's the new one, nice shiny and clean. Seal on there. I'm going to put a little bit of grease around that just so that we know it's not going to get snagged on anything. I've cleaned this face up, cleaned it all up, and we'll chuck it back in. So that's the pump on. I'll just do these bolts up now. Now, they're supposed to be 15 Newton meters, but my torque wrench don't go that low, so I need to get a 3/8 one. I've only got 1/2 inch, but I think that's tight enough. It's on, so that's all back on. Now, this has got somewhere up here, I think it is there. There's a groove. You can see that before I can see it. There's a groove that pin has got to go into. So in the middle, where's that groove gone? Just there. And that's in that locating bit, and then we'll pop the bolt on. And this one again is supposed to be 20 Newton meters plus 45 degrees, so quarter of a turn. So new idler pulley, that can go on as well. Goes in. New nut as well for that. Do them up. So this one's supposed to be 20 Newton meters as well, but again, my torque wrench don't go low enough, so we'll just do it up. Tweet. There you go, that'll do. That's done, they're on, water pump's on, tension's on, that's on, so let's put the belt on. Right, so just had a bit of a game getting the cam belt back on, but I took out the, took this idler pulley off again, just to help, and then that went slid on. I'd already done this up, but I undid that, and you have to, in here, this silver, you see there's the arrow at the front, if I can zoom on, focus on that. The silver arrow at the front has to meet up with where it is, basically this back edge. So you put an Allen key in there and pull that up to put tension onto the belt, and then do this centre nut up again, so that then locks this pulley in place, and you've got the right tension on the belt. Obviously making sure that it's in the right place, in the teeth, on everything. But yeah, that's it. So what I'm going to do now is take this bottom locking tool out, take this top locking tool out, and then I'm going to turn the engine over with a ratchet by hand, just 2 full rotations of the pulley, if you like, just to make sure that nothing hits and everything's okay. Okay, so belt's on. I've turned it twice through full rotation, and then I've put the locking tool back in at the bottom, and then tried to put the locking tool back in at the top, and it was ever so slightly out. So I've undone these 3 bolts that lock this to the cam, just to give you a little bit of adjustment. I've then used a socket on the end of the cam, turned it ever so slightly just to get that pin to lock back in, and then I've just done those bolts back up. So now we are all back in exactly the right place as it should be. And that's the cam belt done, really. We can start reassembling now. So we've replaced the water pump, obviously the tensioner, idler pulley, and the belt. So yeah, might as well start putting it all back together. So it's everything put back in that needs to be put back in, all reassembled, and no bits left on the floor, which is always a good start. I haven't had the chance to change the thermostat or the coolant flush. I've run out of time, and this video is going to be pretty long as it is, so that'll probably be in another episode. I have gone and filled the coolant up with water, because we're going to have to drain everything again, but I just want to run the engine and make sure everything's okay, so I thought I'd chuck a bit of water in, so we've got water in there. Now it's all back together. Let's see and hope we don't bend anything and it runs. I've turned it over by hand, so hopefully it works. It runs! It runs! Yes, so, Cambelt changed. That makes me real happy that that worked. So yeah, I don't know why I've really doubted myself. Cambelt's changed. We've still got to hopefully sort and drain out the coolant system, change the thermostat, and hopefully that sorts the problem. But this one's a little bit longer, I think, than episodes I've been, so if you've stuck all the way to the end, thank you very much. We'll leave this one there then. Thank you ever so much for watching. I do really, really appreciate it. Getting so many nice comments, messages, everything. I've got a lot of people interested in the van and when the van's going to be finished. I think so far I've counted about 35 plus sort of emails, messages and comments, which is amazing. So as soon as the van is ready to go, it's going to go up on my Instagram, which is here, link to it. So go follow me on there. If you haven't seen any of the videos in this series, click here for a link to episode 1 of this build series or restoration series. And if you like what we're doing, click here to subscribe to the channel. Thank you ever so much, guys. We do really appreciate it. Until next time, enjoy.